It's spooky season, everybody. Woo.
Howdy, it's K-Bex and welcome back to my channel. Since it is spooky season, I thought I would talk about the most horrifying part of my novel writing journey so far, and that is the query letter. So if you want advice from someone who's only ever written one query letter, this is the video for you. First of all, I wouldn't advise writing a query letter unless you've looked up some guides. You know me, my standards, Writers HQ and Jericho. I swear I am not sponsored by either of these, but if you'd like to. I had a look on Writers HQ first, as there was a 6-month subscription for their full membership that I was a part of at the time. So I had a look through their guide and made note of it, and then had a look at the Jericho one and kind of combined the two together with stuff that I'd seen online and advice that I'd been given elsewhere. And so that gave me a rough outline. I can't remember if it was Writers HQ or Jericho, I think it was Jericho, that literally gave me like a PDF that you could fill in, you know, bit by bit, that gave you, you know, sort of like an outline structure to start with. And then once I'd filled all that in and had like a really bare bones kind of rough draft, that's when I started to play around with it and look at other people's advice, watch some YouTube videos. I'll pop some in the information box down below that I found helpful, and I just kind of combined all those together to create this query letter. And after that I went back to it 2-3 more times before I sought out any further help, which brings me on to my next point is please go and find somebody, whether it's somebody from a writers group, a critique circle that you might have, or in my case I went to Edgelit in Derby and they were running a session where an indie publisher came in and they talked about the query letter quite extensively, and that was really helpful. And I was quite lucky as well that a colleague from my job just happened to have a friend that is in publishing, and so they offered very kindly to have a cheeky peek at my query letter and put lots of red all over it and to kind of guide me in the right direction, which was really, really nice. It was also quite nice that even when the red pen came back, that I could see where I'd been on the right track. You know, it wasn't like it was a completely new letter. Most of the bones were the same. It was just like, you know, things had been tweaked ever so slightly. So it was quite nice to have somebody who knew a bit more about what a query letter should look like, because otherwise I've not really got anybody in my life who's on this same kind of writing journey. I've got 1 or 2 people in my writers groups, like my writer friends, that may have once upon a time sent a query letter, but no one recently that I'm, you know, close enough with to have an extensive conversation about it with. So it was very helpful to have somebody who just randomly offered their help. Though I'm aware not everyone will have that chance, and I probably won't get that chance again. Third thing that I had a look at was trying to make my query letter as exciting and alluring as possible while describing the plot. What I first did was I had kind of given spoilers away in the query letter, but I was told to hang back on that and to treat it almost like a book jacket and just leave some question marks, make it intriguing, and so that the synopsis is where you will have all of your spoilers, so it won't really matter. The person who's reading it should hopefully look at both the query letter and the synopsis, unless the query letter is really dull. So hopefully you get a chance to explain everything properly there, whereas the query letter, you want to pull them in a bit like you want to pull your readers in, make it as enticing as possible, and to include enigma, you know, leave those gaps that can be filled in when they look through the plot summary instead. Which obviously leads into my next one, which is to have a USP, a unique selling point, a hook, something that shows that your novel is a little bit different from others. I know that you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because often we're told that you need to be able to compare your book to other books, which I'll come on to in a bit, but you still need to show that it's different. So it's similar enough that it can fit in the market, but not so similar that it's boring, and that's really tricky. So trying to find something a little bit different about yours compared to the others. Leading on to my 5th point, we've got comparative titles, which for me I never thought was going to be the tricky part, but when it came to writing my first draft of my query letter, the advice had been to make sure that the comparative titles are not super out of date and are not super famous, but also not so obscure no one's heard of them. And that was really tricky because I got some in my head already and they were too old. My comp titles, I realised, were from 2008, 2010, something like that. And so that's just way too out of date, and it made it look like I had no idea what was going on in the world of fiction between sort of then and now. And as you can see behind me, there are books that are a little bit more recent than that, especially because of the books that I really, really loved. I wasn't entirely confident of saying that they're a comp title to my story because it felt slightly arrogant, I guess. But I kind of had to get over that, and in the end I had a look through a few more of the recent titles behind me, had a very quick read of some recommendations from other people, and finally found my 2 comp titles. I also read a piece of advice, I want to say on Threads, and it was an agent, and if I can find out who the agent was, I will pop their info down below. But apologies if I can't find it because I can't remember off the top of my head. But this agent basically said to not be afraid of using comparative titles that are not novels. They said that you should maybe think about TV shows and films and things like that, and I absolutely love TV shows and films. I'm also, as alongside being an English teacher, I'm a film studies teacher, so that really helped me. And I've also picked a TV show and a film that I thought were comparative to my content. I basically described my work as a mashup between this film and this TV show. And that actually made it a little bit more engaging for me because I was a little bit more interested, and I thought it was a little bit different to just make you stand out a little bit. Sorry, my dog keeps making moaning noises and sighs because I'm not paying him attention. I'm having to stroke him with one arm at the same time as record, so forgive me if I keep, looking a bit distracted. Also want to talk about the bio. I found this bit really hard because I felt like there was nothing that I could say about myself that I thought would be super interesting. And not that I'm boring, I think. But I just didn't know if it would be relevant for the story I'd written. I kept that really, really short. I was told to just do a couple of lines. One thing that I was told to do was within that, explain why you are the person to be writing this particular story. What is it that makes you qualified? And it doesn't have to be like an actual qualification, but it does need to be about why you specifically were the one to write this. Why did you need to be the one to write it, and why not somebody else? Why not a different story? So I use my own experiences of grief, of losing somebody, a friend, at a relatively young age, because that's part of my story. And then also the setting was Exeter, which I spent about 8 months in Exeter. And so I wanted to use somewhere I felt like another character because I knew it so well, and it really fit with the atmosphere of my story. If you've never been to Exeter, by the way, please do go. It's really, really lovely, particularly the cathedral. It's great. Then another bit that I found tricky as a relatively new writer, where they ask for your writing credentials. Now I do have them, but nothing in the world of novels. Mine are all, minor publications for short stories. I had to decide whether that was relevant enough. People might give you different advice. I've had some people tell me to write them down anyway because it's the same genre. Some people to tell me not to bother because it's short stories and I'm looking at novels. I opted for not including them. I imagine that I'll probably edit my query letter as I go along, and so if not having my relevant short story writing credits isn't working for me, I'll just pop those in, any ones that I think are, genre relevant at least. That brings me on to my next point about editing. I have only looked at my letter 4 times, I think, but it's dramatically changed each time, and I don't think it's finished just yet. It's nearly there. I imagine that once I've sent it to a couple of people and either heard nothing back or heard rejections, I might go back and tweak it some more. So I feel like it is a working document that can be constantly updated as and when you think it's not quite working out for you. If it consistently doesn't work for you, maybe see if you can get somebody to have a look at it professionally. Now, I know I had somebody have a look for me for free, but I am aware also that person doesn't work in my genre. So what I'd probably do is I'd have a look. There's plenty of people online who work in the publishing biz who offer their services to have a look through query letters and offer some changes and feedback. So I'd probably go down that route if after a while the query letter it doesn't seem to be doing the job. Something that I've realised in my own day-to-day job is that people don't seem to tailor their query letter / CV to the people that they're applying to. And I find this really weird. I did this in my day-to-day job with schools. I always looked on the school website and I added in anything where our goals aligned and made it seem like I was a fit for that place. And I didn't see how writing a query letter would be any different. But it surprised me the amount of examples I saw where people didn't write specific details about the agent in their query letter. I think it's super important. Obviously I haven't sent mine off yet, so maybe it's not that important, but I would feel like if I was an agent, I'd want to know people had actually looked me up and cared about me specifically being the one to receive this letter and this novel, because if you're not reaching out to them for a specific reason, it's going to feel like you just want anybody and you're not really that bothered who gets your book. And I don't think that's advisable. I feel like that's a little bit cold, and you're trying to craft a relationship with these people. The best place to start, I would imagine, is by just looking at their website and finding out what books they're interested in and what really hooks them. And if your book doesn't have any of those things, don't send it to this agent. Send it to somebody else who would actually be really excited by your book. Because at the end of the day, you want to have an enjoyable time with these people. And if you're not going to click and you're going to vibe, they're not going to be interested in your story. What is the point in expending all this effort to reach out to them in the first place?
Who's my boo-boo? This is my boy.
Hello, everybody. He doesn't look impressed.
This is my little baby. Say hello. Oh, I love you.
So that's the advice from somebody who has never done a query letter before, until now, and who has never sent their query letter off. If this is for you, give me a like, a share, subscribe perhaps, and I will see you guys next month. Bye. Until next time. Bye. So I have got a Halloween calendar. I'm very excited. I opened the first one obviously yesterday, but the second one today. The doors are not easy to open though, so you'll have to give me a moment. Here we go. Oh. It kind of looks like a little poo. Anyway, so he's going to join Pride of Place next to my little green pumpkin there. We'll see what we get next time. Hopefully not another poo. I'm very excited about my Halloween countdown calendar, so I might do some shorts showing you off my new little figurines as we go along. And the final biggie is to make sure you're just following their guidelines. No, it's not. That's not the last thing. Oh, there's a whole other side I forgot about. I've lost the part.